Hello, dear friends, and welcome to another amazing episode of the Heallist Podcast. So excited to have with us today Mary Montague. She's the founder of POGA Method, a former special education classroom teacher turned wellness expert specializing in Pilates, yoga, meditation, and mindfulness for preschoolers through adults. Her business is built on teaching healthy habits from a young age and carrying them through to adulthood for an intentional feel-good lifestyle. Mary supports families in establishing systems and routines for mindful behavior. And I'm just so excited today to talk as a parent. The subject is so close to my heart. And when I found you, Mary, I was just thrilled to bring you in because I think so many more parents or anyone who has access to children, right? I'm personally so curious to really talk about some of those habits that we have such a hard time changing, right? Once later in our lives, and how important it is to install them from this early age. So I'm super excited for this conversation and give our listeners some practical tips and really talk about mindfulness in this early age. It's such a wonderful subject. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to sit down and talk to you.
So let's start from the beginning, and I'm going to dive right in because I have so many questions for you. Let's talk about age. When we talk about children and wellness and mindfulness, a lot of people might be thinking, okay, well, this is maybe later in their life. Maybe it's a little too early to introduce some of those concepts. Talk about the age. When is the right time to start, and how does it change throughout different stages of our human evolution?
I think around age 3 is normally the time that I recommend to start. We definitely implement our program into a lot of preschools. So at age 3 or even in elementary school, you're starting new subjects like music, art, science lab, PE, and everything is new to you. So you don't have a resistance to it. You would almost assume if you were taking a mindfulness class or a yoga class or whatever as a child, you would assume that everyone does this. You wouldn't know that this particular method is unique or new and progressive. Kids just do what they're taught to do, right? They're experiencing life for the first time. So they're very receptive to it and very open to it. I would say that the resistance might build as they get older, which is also an okay thing because as kids become teenagers, maybe they go more into dance or soccer or that they want to become a professional swimmer or something, right? And then the other extracurriculars fall to the wayside. But if they had these skills from a child, from a young age, then it's always going to be embodied within them that then they can use them as needed as they navigate life. And maybe they come back to it at a later stage.
I love that. So, what is the right mindfulness practices to introduce at this early age of 3?
Self awareness is definitely number one. And to be self aware, you can connect to your breath, which is the easiest thing to do. With kids, we like to make it as fun as we can. So we could do a bumblebee breath. That really, really helps you calm down those feelings of happiness. We could do a lion's breath where we talk about when you're so angry and mad and frustrated and you just want to get out your angry feelings. Or we could do generalized box breathing. You breathe in for 3, you breathe out for 3. Or we could just try to sit in silence and notice our breath by putting one hand over our heart, one hand over our tummy. So there's a lot of different breathing exercises we can do for kids, but the more fun and engaging you can make it, the better.
Amazing. And do you recommend starting it as a group exercise or as a personal one-on-one practice with a parent? What works best for this age group?
I think both can be equally beneficial. I wouldn't say one is better than the other.
Amazing. And as they grow, let's talk about some of the next stages. Like you mentioned, it might change as they grow older. Let's say more of like a elementary school age. What is the right approach? What are the practices that you can layer on the breath?
The biggest struggle as they get older, I think, is just time. I think that as adults, we have this illusion that we don't have time for things, right? So I would say that that's maybe the struggle. Is someone going to put time and money towards a practice like this? And we kind of create roadblocks for ourselves. But if we just realize that a mindfulness practice, a breathwork practice, a movement practice, or any sort of health and wellness habit can be integrated into your lifestyle then you can do it at any time. So maybe if you're a little older, you're a fifth grader, you're about to do a test, then maybe you're doing a simple breathing exercise before a test. Maybe you're about to go to sleepaway camp for the first time and you're having some anxiety about that. You're talking to your parents about it. Then maybe you're processing your emotions through movement or through breath work. So really, they're just kind of life coping skills that you continue to practice. And if you practice them in a preventative way before something becomes an issue, then it's the most beneficial.
That. And how about general routine? So I understand like the usefulness of before tests or in any other kind of life events, but do you suggest to have a certain routine with kids in this age?
Yes. So I'm really big on sticker charts, and I have a sticker chart for myself, and I will probably create a sticker chart for myself for the rest of my life. And it's just basically a goal chart of all the things I want to do throughout my day. So anything from brushing my teeth to putting my phone in a separate room when I go to bed at night, and everything in between. And I give myself little points for all of my goals. So maybe my goal is to take 10,000 steps a day. Maybe a goal is to do a workout class 5 days a week. Maybe a goal is to meditate for 5 minutes a day. Maybe your goal as a student is to read before bed with your phone out of the room, anything like that. So just decide what your goal is and what's reasonable for you. And then if you can create a habit checklist, which I love creating with my clients and for myself, to just effortlessly incorporate it, right? So that way you're building healthy habits. And it's my favorite tip to tell parents is that let's say kids, your child really wants a new pair of shoes, or they really, there's some clothing brand that they really, really like. Maybe they're getting it for their birthday. Maybe they're getting a gift for Christmas or Hanukkah or a celebration, right? But maybe they can work on these healthy habit checklists with some sort of incentive in mind rather than just giving them gifts and shoes and clothes kind of willy-nilly. So I love to tell my parent clients that, and I even do it for myself where I kind of check my list of my sticker chart every day with all of my healthy habits, and then I save for something that I really, really want. It's very motivating. So that way, if you see it on your list and you think reading for 5 minutes before bed, doing breath work for 5 minutes in the morning, doing a workout class 3 times a week, going on a walk to see the sunlight earlier in the day, if you just incorporate it effortlessly, then it doesn't have to be that big of a deal, but you can reward yourself in the end so that it is intentional and you're continuing to work towards a goal.
No, it definitely works. As a parent, I can admit that the reward system,
Yeah.
it's amazing. And what kind of mindfulness activities, let's say, you would recommend for like an 8-year-old, right? Let's pick kind of an age in between. Give us some examples that would be realistic that this age group is going to be excited about and they can definitely incorporate into their day.
Okay, so I would let your 8-year-old be a part of creating this, right? So talk about it with your 8-year-old and say, hey, I notice sometimes at night we're kind of fighting a little bit before bed. Let's talk about that and let's come up with some systems to help with that. Or I notice in the morning it's so hard for you to get ready for school, where I'm always yelling at you in the morning, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. I want to stop doing that. Let's talk about it. What could we do together? And your 8-year-old would probably have ideas about how to make those transition times easier, right? So maybe your 8-year-old might say, okay, in the morning, it's just so stressful. I'm tired. I'm hurrying to eat my breakfast. And then I always forget my homework folder or this and that. Figure it out together as a system to just add more presence, more mindfulness to that morning routine and set yourself up for success. So maybe it's, okay, let's work together. What do you think about putting your homework folder in your backpack the night before? Yeah, okay, that would make sense. So maybe you add that on your sticker chart and he earns a point for that, right? Maybe in the morning, he decides, I don't really like this kind of breakfast. I actually want something else that's going to help me focus better. And then you experiment with that for a little bit and you talk about, hey, how did your breakfast make you feel? And he might say, yeah, it was so much better. Having a smoothie was actually quicker. It gave me some of my time back. Or maybe at night, the 8-year-old is playing a video game before bed, and then he's kind of annoyed when the video game is disrupted because it's time for him to go to bed. So maybe you say, hey, I want you to have that video game time. How about we do it before dinner? That way at nighttime, we have a little bit more time to read a book and do something a little bit more gentle before bed. So I think it's really just about the parent and the child creating a system together that feels good for both people, that really creates healthy habits for success.
So in terms of the do's and don'ts, and I know for me, definitely no screens after dinner is the absolute must because I feel like that sets such a bad habit in terms of the sleep quality and everything kind of snowballs from there. And it seems like you're in agreement with that. But anything else that is quick tips that will help improve the overall well-being throughout the day, morning, evening time, weekends?
Yes, two things come to mind. What about sunlight first thing in the morning? Depending on where you live, can breakfast be outside if the weather is appropriate? Can you go on a little walk around the block before school starts? Can you walk to school? Can you put your feet in the grass? Can you just open the shades and open the windows first thing? Just some sort of transition to have the day start with a more vibrant energy would be really, really helpful. And then it's something you almost look forward to is opening the blinds every day or stepping out for the fresh air every day. That could just be a simple well-being tip that really benefits your life overall and kind of can change the energy of the home. And then the second thing, I lost it. Let me think. For a healthy habit throughout the day.
Or weekend?
Yes, another thing is that kids are being told, tell me if you agree with this as a parent, kids are being told what to do all day, every day. From the moment they wake up, they're probably getting woken up by their parent telling them to wake up. Then they're being rushed out the door, breakfast, the whole transition to get to school. As soon as they get to school, it's like teachers, administrators telling them what to do all day long. Then they might go to an after school class or meet with a coach. Then they're being told to do their homework. Then they're being told it's dinner time, brush your teeth, go to bed, etc. Right? When do kids ever get an opportunity just to think to themselves and think with their own brain and self-reflect on their own day and just have a moment of silence and stillness and pause? Or when do kids ever have a time to be bored? So I would advise having just some downtime to self-regulate and just have free time to be bored and just allow for there to be a little bit of flexibility through the schedule. And also, if you're a parent, and I know this as a teacher, sometimes we kind of get into the habit where we're constantly telling the student or the child to do the next thing. If you can just say it once and then just allow for a little bit rather than the constant follow-up and just see how they do with a little bit more space, because they probably are very capable of doing it. And we're probably as adults inserting ourselves a little bit too much.
Oh my God, you really hit a nerve here because it's something that I noticed myself how and I have been without kids for the last few days because they're on vacation. So I noticed that a lot when they're not around, how much less I just have to tell people what to do and stay on top of things, right? It's so liberating not to have to do that, but it also highlighted the contrast, how much I'm constantly throughout the day basically busy telling them what to do. And I had the same exact thought. And sometimes, it's frustrating too, because most parents, we have to say things at least 5 to 10 times before they actually happen. And it's like this vicious cycle, right? And then you really find yourself, and there are certain days that you need to move through the day, and there's a schedule, and there's a lot of things that need to be accomplished, but you find yourself just repeating directions all day long. Part of me thinks sometimes we did an experiment with our older son, who's 8-year-old, just to make him in charge of his own morning. And that was such an empowerment exercise because we said, listen, you need to catch the school bus at 8 o'clock. You know how much time you have a watch. Can you try and manage your own time? And these are the things that need to happen. And it was rough, for a few days. And, we had to kind of direct him a little bit. But slowly, it definitely created like more responsibility and less of a need
Yeah.
to give constant directions, because as a parent it's just exhausting, right?
I love that. That is so self-empowering. The feeling of self-empowerment, I think, is one of the best feelings ever. And I think that when we tell kids to do something 5 times in a row, they're going to expect you the next day to say it 5 times in a row. So they're going to ignore you the first 4 times because that's just the routine now. But if you can say, leaving at 8 o'clock, it's now 7:55, look at the time, I'll be back here at 8 o'clock. And then you give yourself 5 minutes to do what you need to do. And then you come back right at 8 o'clock. And then doing it in that much more calm way, then they realize I can actually look at the clock myself, which is what you just taught your son. So I love that approach.
You. Any other tips for empowerment specifically? Because I'm really, this is one area that at least I'm trying to, my goal for my kids is to raise them independent, self-sufficient, empowered, confident. So, and I do think it's part of their well-being package, right? Because everything starts in the mind. Any other ideas or tips how to make them self-empowered and make those good choices for themselves?
Yes, mindset is so important and self-awareness is so important. So that's when guided meditation and visualization would come in, and also just having that downtime for them to be able to think themselves. So whether you do this through conversation, through journaling, through writing, through drawing, through meditation, just giving them an opportunity to almost learn how to goal set for themselves. So you might say, okay, you're going into fourth grade this year. This is a great time because kids are going back to school, and say, hey, you're going into fourth grade. I want to sit down with you for 30 minutes and let's talk about who you want to be in fourth grade. So who do you want to be on the first day of school? What kind of person are you? And, they might be a little bit uncomfortable. I tend to find that students are probably more comfortable doing this with me or an outside coach than they are with their own parent. But you could adapt the modality, draw a picture, write a note, talk about it, visualize. You don't even have to share. You can just think of it privately. But to feel self-empowered, to say, okay, who do you want to be on your first day of school? Who do you want to be this year in fourth grade? What's your goal with your schoolwork? What's your goal with your friends? What's your goal outside of school? What's your goal at home? And just kind of let them visualize who they want to be. And then you could say, okay, well, in order to be that person, what kind of things do you think you need to do every day? So if your goal is to get your grades up in math this year, what do you think would help you do that? Tell me as a parent how I can help you. Do you need a math tutor? Do you need me to buy you math flashcards and we practice in the car every day? What could we do to help you get to those goals? So that way they're self-empowered, because it's not goals that you're putting on them. It's goals that they've actually become self-aware enough to think for themselves. And then the whole concept of your identity, like James Clear talks about this a lot in his book, Atomic Habits, is if it's your identity where you're the kind of person who does this, and they start to show up as that kind of person, then they're more likely to do the habits to get them to the goal. So really teaching that from a young age, I think, is absolutely possible.
Amazing. And when it comes to changing habits, I'm curious from your experience, how long does it take to kids to reshape their habits, their behavior?
I think it depends on consistency and the reward. So it could be really simple. If you had a really simple sticker chart, maybe there was one thing on your sticker chart on the fridge that your child was going to, what would be a good example of a simple thing that a child could do, like one habit?
Like maybe, or tidying up their room.
Yeah. Okay. So every day before dinner, they have to tidy up their room. And that's their one and only goal. If you put a sticker chart on the fridge, every day for 7 days, they had to tidy up their room before dinner. And every day, maybe you gave them one little reminder. And then afterwards, you gave them a comment of positive reinforcement. And then at the end of the week, they got to earn a prize. That seems so simple. And the prize doesn't have to be anything crazy. I mean, it could be something that you were going to do for the child anyway. Like maybe on Sunday you have plans on the calendar to take the kids on a play date to go get ice cream. You're going to do that anyway. Just, pretend like, oh, this is your prize for reaching that habit goal for 7 days. And then, the amount of time it might take for them to be able to do it without a sticker chart might be a few weeks, but then maybe you could just say, okay, now that you've met this goal for 1 week, now let's put 2 goals on the sticker chart. So then they keep on doing the first habit, but then you're able to add in a second habit and just give a lot of positive reinforcement to them.
So, since you mentioned positive reinforcement in every word, so this is another subject that I'm really curious about because I feel like, especially in the American culture in general, we're so great with positive reinforcement, right? It's almost like everyone is doing an amazing job. Everyone is is a genius in what they do. What's the right balance to empower without maybe creating a false sense of accomplishment constantly.
Yeah, I think that there's things that as humans we're just required to do, where, we should be sharing, we should be kind, we should be helping out around the house. Those are just requirements. So it doesn't necessarily have to be, wow, you put your dish in the sink. Amazing. You're such a big kid. It could just be, thank you for helping out, or that really helped me. So instead, you're sending two messages where you are giving them the positive reinforcement, but you're also just saying, yeah, you're being an active participant in the household. So it doesn't have to be an over the top thing, but just kind of noticing. We all like to receive a compliment, right? So just noticing, giving a compliment here and there when you know that they're really trying their best, I think can go a long way, but it can also still be expected behavior.
And since we're talking about wellness overall and well-being, and I think food and nutrition is a big part of it, what is your point of view on food rewards? Because this is one of my pet peeves. When people say, well, if you do this well, you're going to get an ice cream, right? I feel like personally that it creates this unhealthy relationship with food as a reward system instead of it being kind of the nurturing element of our well-being. What is the do and don'ts in your opinion?
I agree with you. And I think it could go either way. I do agree with you where you don't want food to be this reward thing where we're constantly, kind of depriving ourselves of an ice cream and we only get an ice cream if we earn it. It should be a little bit more intuitive than that. So that's kind of entering a dangerous zone. So I agree with you there. It could perhaps be where you talk to your child about, healthy eating. So maybe you have a meal plan, you talk about we're going grocery shopping on Sunday. Here's what we're going to be cooking this week, that kind of thing. And you're just talking openly about food. How did this food make you feel? I love this kind of vegetable. What do you like? Just having open conversations about food and then having open conversations about treats and just saying, there's treats out there that are so delicious, but they're made to be treats. And you could say, my favorite treat is mint chocolate chip ice cream, but I know that if I ate it all the time, it would make me feel sick. So I don't really eat it all the time. But I know that when I go to Maine every summer, there's this particular ice cream shop where I just love their mint chocolate chip ice cream. So that's a time where it feels like a good choice for me. So you can actually just introduce treats in a way and explain to them that they are treats. And then that way it's a more realistic approach. But I do agree that if you are choosing a reward system and they're constantly asking every week they want their reward to be a cupcake, then maybe you have to lead them down a different path. And I mean, I think as a parent, not to totally trick your child, but as a parent, give them a reward that you almost would have given them anyway. Let's say they're really into books and they want the next book in the Harry Potter series. You would probably give that to them anyway, but they really are so excited about it. So make that the reward. You're noticing that they really need a new pair of pajamas. So instead, you're going to buy it for them anyway, but make that the reward. That way, it's not actually costing you more money, but it is something that every time they look at those pajamas, they might think, oh, I earned that. That was really cool how I earned that.
I love that. Yeah, I love, especially I feel like when we go to back to school, there's so many things that we need to get for kids, but use it instead of just kind of automatically buying it, make them part of the process and make them actually earn it. I
Yes,
love that.
definitely. Yeah.
And let's talk about movement because I know that's a big part of what you do. And I'm really curious. My kids have been really fortunate to get yoga classes in their amazing school. And me, myself, I've had those amazing yoga cards from the very early age that I got for them. And now they know the poses. It's like a game and has different like animal drawings. And it really got them into yoga. So this is like one accomplishment that I give myself a sticker for as a parent.
Yes, here's all the flowers.
Any other tips, know, with yoga specifically to help get kids into it? Let's say if they don't have an opportunity to do it through school or through other after school activities or other movement practices that really connect. The body, mind, and spirit.
My biggest philosophy with movement is it just helps us process our emotions and it stops us from rumination, right? So I'm sure everyone listening has experience where you're ruminating about something and you go on a walk and it completely clears your mind, or you come up with a creative idea on a walk, or you're super frustrated about something in the morning, you received a work email, and then you go to your daily workout class. And by the end of the workout class, that email's not that frustrating and you know exactly how you're going to handle it. So having kids identify that movement can help with their mood is a huge self-awareness realization. And the younger you can learn that, the better. And to illustrate an example, I was teaching a first grade classroom. This experience happened a couple years ago, this example. I was teaching a first grade classroom my POGA method, and I was walking into the classroom at 8:30 in the morning for their weekly Thursday morning lesson. So the kids know the drill. As soon as they see me, they go to the rug and they sit in a circle and we get started with that lesson. And on this particular day, I walked in and this little boy was in full rumination, and he came up to me and he said that something happened this morning with Roblox and he was so stressed about it and all this stuff. And I'm not a parent yet, so I don't exactly understand what Roblox is, but I could sense that he was anxious and it was really fogging his mind. So I said, okay, it's okay. I kind of just put my hand on his shoulder and guided him over, with the other 20 kids to the circle. And we did our whole lesson, which incorporates mindfulness, movement through yoga and Pilates, and meditation. And at the end of the whole movement exercise, which lasted for about 20 minutes, I often ask the kids, raise your hand if you want to share how you feel. And kids are often saying, I feel calm, I feel good, I feel happy, I feel peaceful. And this one boy was almost in disbelief where he said, wow, I had so many thoughts in my mind before, and now I just feel nothing. And he just identified that all of those anxious thoughts about Roblox just kind of drifted away. And he said, yeah, I feel really good now. So that made me so happy because no matter what kind of movement it is, it's just giving your body an opportunity to work through those emotions, process those emotions, and get them out. And then with a clear mind, you can move forward with your day. So any kind of movement, whether it's a walk, a soccer class, a yoga class, anything, incorporating movement throughout your day is just unbelievably beneficial.
Amazing. What a great story. So, can you share a little bit more about the POGA method? Because I think it's really incredible what you're doing and so unique.
Thank you. Yes. So my background is a dancer. I was a ballet dancer growing up. I grew up in Australia. And then I moved to the States for college and I studied to be a special education teacher. So both my undergrad and my master's degree is in special ed. And I became a special education teacher for kindergarten through fifth grade grades at the Beverly Hills Unified School District for 8 years. And I loved the job. So now the school district is actually one of my clients. When I was teaching, I got super into Pilates. That's kind of the common pipeline from a dancer to Pilates, right? So I would take a Pilates class every morning before work from 7 till 8. I would be at work by 8:10, and I would just feel incredible walking into my classroom. So you know the feeling after any sort of workout or just prioritizing myself first thing in the morning. I just felt great by the time I got to work. I would sit on a big, huge Pilates ball, one of those massive balls that you see at the gym, instead of a desk chair, a teacher chair. And I highly recommend that. I know that standing desks are very popular. Another alternative, if you want to sit, is sit on that Pilates ball because it engages your core and that gentle movement just kind of keeps your mind alert. So I would sit on a Pilates ball. So all of my students would say, teach us some Pilates, Miss Montague. We want to learn Pilates. And, at first I kind of thought, okay, it's an avoidant behavior. They want to avoid their work and, distract me and learn some Pilates. So it was just kind of a inside joke for a little bit. But I noticed that the first 30 minutes of the day in my classroom were our least productive time. I always felt that the kids needed a little bit of a warm-up period to get really focused for their academics. And the academic output wasn't as good for the first 30 minutes. It just took them a little time to settle in. So one day when they were particularly unfocused, and granted, these are kids who have mild to moderate disabilities, so maybe ADHD, a learning disability, they're on the autism spectrum, etc. One day I just said, okay, everyone get out of your desks, come to the rug, and I'm going to teach you some Pilates. And they were like, finally, you're going to teach us some of your Pilates. So we spent probably about 10 minutes just gentle stretching, a few little core exercises, some breathing together as a group. And they loved it. And this was my light bulb moment for my business, where I just realized how connected we were for those 10 minutes, where they all just breathed together with me and got so focused on their mind body connection. And they were so centered that after 10 minutes, when we went back to their desks, we didn't waste any time. We had just caught up and were able to 2x the amount of time moving forward. So from that point on, I realized, okay, these kind of modalities of movement, breath work, mindfulness, stretching within the classroom for little tiny breaks to help kids focus and self regulate and really to help with transitions is going to be hugely beneficial. And that was 10 years ago. So now, luckily, a lot of schools have caught on to this. And I think every adult agrees. Everyone says, I wish I had this when I was a kid. So really that's how it began. It was very, very organic.
I love that so much. And I mean, it makes so much sense. I mean, again, watching my kids after some of those practices, it's really, you see a huge difference. And how did it grow since then? So you had this light bulb moment, but you were still teaching. Can you fast forward us to today?
Yes, step by step. And that's something I have to constantly remind myself is you don't know what you're doing when you're building something, and you just have to take one step and then the next step, and then it's a compound effect. So at the time, I wasn't certified yet. As soon as I realized how beneficial it was, I thought, okay, is Pilates for kids a thing? Let me make it a thing. So let me go and get Pilates certified, yoga for kids certified, etc. And I really dove into it. And then about a year later, in 2015, I left my teaching job and I said, okay, I'm going to teach Pilates for kids full time. And then it ended up being Pilates and yoga combined, which is really the method that I created that I think works the best for kids. And that started 10 years ago, the POGA method. So Pilates being body control, that's what Pilates was originally called by Joseph Pilates, is contrology, mixed with yoga, which you can do so many things for kids with yoga. As you mentioned, the flashcards before, and we're doing cat and cow and making moo and meow sounds, depending on the grade level. Combining Pilates and yoga together is really the sweet spot. And then over time, I realized how much attention was needed for mental health and social emotional skills. So then we've added two more pillars of meditation and mindfulness. And my first year teaching, I think I was in 3 classrooms. Now the POGA method is in about 50 classrooms and growing. And just step by step, more and more teachers, administrators, and parents asked for it. And we just kept building and growing from there.
That is incredible. I mean, those kids are so lucky to learn from you all those amazing modalities in such an early age. So, how can people or schools or individuals work with you?
Okay, so the best way to find me is on Instagram, the POGA method. And you can go to the link in bio for all sorts of links for how you can work with me. In person, 2 ways. The first way is in both Los Angeles and New York. It's myself and a team of POGA teachers where we teach in school classrooms, private homes, after school classes. We do events and workshops and summer camps. So get in touch with me via the link on my Instagram. You can book a free consultation call if you want, and we can do in-person classes for you. Also, if you don't live in Los Angeles or New York and you want to work with me virtually, I work with clients and families on meditation, mindfulness techniques, and mindset coaching. So there's a link in my bio for that as well. And then product wise and very low cost wise, I have this book actually, Damien the Cow, a yoga story for kids. So this is on Amazon. I recommend this book for ages 3 to 8. And it's a mindful message about friendship. There's breathing exercises in here and a number of different yoga poses that create a fun yoga sequence. And then I also have Mary's Medis, which are 10 very bite-sized 5-minute guided meditation visualization exercises for families that you can also download.
Amazing. I love all these incredible offerings, and there is something for everyone. And I can't wait to try actually your meditations with my kids once they
Yes.
come back from their vacation. I can't wait for that. And that's an amazing back to school new habit that I would like to establish.
Yes, you can put that on the sticker chart.
Well, it's been a really amazing conversation, and I have so many more questions, but I know we're running out of time. So I wanted to give you an opportunity to cover anything else like that we haven't said that you felt would be really important for parents to know. Any other kind of um, big words of advice?
I think just you're never too old and you're never too young to do something that's going to create a healthy habit for yourself. So if you feel that you're not where you want to be, just make one commitment to start one new habit this week and try to do it 7 days in a row and give yourself a reward afterwards. It's not too late. Just start today. And the same goes for your child. If you feel like you've started some bad habits in your home, start again. You can always start again. It's never too early and it's never too late.
Love that. Well, you inspired me to try a whole set of new habits for my family, and such a pleasure to have you. And again, all those beautiful children that benefit from your POGA method are extremely fortunate. Thank you for having that light bulb moment and bringing your wisdom to all of us. And what a pleasure.
Yes, thank you, Yuli. And I love the community that you've created. So I really appreciate just getting to sit down and have time with you today.
Amazing.
How was it?